Here we have a typical MST 800 dumper that, although is very cheap in Japan, probably get it for around $10,000 or maybe 900,000 yen, so a little more than 10,000. The price is right, but as you can see, it's got rust all along the front. Hood panels are damaged, dented. Not too bad on the side. Box, it's got some extra panels on the top that could be cut off. This side, the track is questionable. On the outside it's cracked, so probably junk. Going around the other side, bumpers missing. Bumpers are always dented. Anyways, all bashed up, typical. Here the floorboard of the cab area is rusted, and here the water has penetrated into underneath the metal and it's frozen, bubbled. The rust has bubbled it up. The roof, well, you can see right through it, so the whole top of the roof is shot, but yet the frame around it still pretty good. Here's another picture in behind. So the whole floorboard and the tunnel, we call it the tunnel, that the seat and everything mounts onto, is rusted out. And this is the other side of the box. And tailgate's actually there. Not too bad a shape. And, well, there's the parts. There's the grill and the bumper that's twisted, and the bottom of the box is dented up. So in a summary, that's what we have. The undercarriage of this machine, the rollers actually on this dumper have quite a bit of thickness left on them, you can see there. So they're actually not in bad shape, and none of them are leaking yet. That's something that we want to change the way they are, because they always do leak. Top carrier rollers, actually amazingly in good shape on this one. That tube, the 8x8 tube, quite often needs supporting. And rear idler still has quite a bit of meat left on it. So yeah, pivot shafts, looks inside there. That one looks okay. That one's okay, but that's something that we want to recondition on pretty much every one of them, and as well as the rollers, which I'll explain later. This side, the track, is pretty much almost new condition, although you see down here there's some cuts. So we would just allocate a value to this track and sell it as a used track or put it on a used machine. The other side, as I said before, is not the same, and it's cracked. You see the cracks in there. Although the inside still has some integrity to it. This track would be, allocated a much lesser value, could or be chucked, one of the two. Both tracks would be replaced with on a reconditioned machine with new tracks. In this case, these sprockets here are about 50%, and they would be replaced with new. The other side, about the same. Yeah, about the same. So both sprockets would be replaced with new sprockets. So we can see how this is. Give it a little bit of throttle. And as usual on these machines, the engine usually runs fairly well on this price machine. Of course, if you buy one with a bad engine, it would be different, but that would be a different method of reconditioning. But most of the time the engines do run good, and they do travel back and forth. The gauges quite often do not work. You can see we have no working fuel gauge and lights on. Now shut this off, but usually the electrical is an issue. Usually a bit of a rat's nest underneath, as you can see here, and fuse panel with nothing in it. So going with a different instrument cluster would probably be an option. The bottom of the box, as you can see here, like we saw from the top view, that it's quite dented on the metal plate, but the cross members and the frame are still good. They got angle iron welded down here instead of the piece of wood. And the engine and the pumps are there, and those would be anything to do with the pumps or the drive motors would be taken care of in Canada. The metal work and all that would be done in Vietnam, and potentially the boxes would be done separately. So we would just do the chassis, cabin chassis, and ship the boxes in a separately, hoping to get 4 units per 40-foot container without the boxes, and then stacking the boxes in a different container afterwards. Muffler systems, this one's actually pretty good on here, and air cleaner systems, which need to be cleaned up, and all the piping checked and made good. You can see there the turbo's wrapped on this one, which is good. And actually generally this machine is not in bad shape other than the rust, which is what would be taken care of in Vietnam. Here we're looking down in the engine compartment, and yeah, it actually looks like some new hoses and clamps, and the turbo's been wrapped. So sometimes motor mounts down in below that white bracket there is a rubber motor mount. They sometimes need to be changed. Fans are quite often, as you can see here, that ripped off tips, so we have new fans available. And the radiators and the oil cooler in front of it quite often need work as well. Cleaning up, and there's a linkage going from behind the seat, and those are quite often need repairing. Taken apart, cleaned up, put back together, nothing major. Here we're looking in the fuel tank and the hydraulic oil tank and battery area, and this particular unit looks pretty good. You can see the rust in the front. Quite often this floor has to be replaced as well in this area, so you take the tanks out and replace the floor in here. Here is a MST 2200 that has had the front panels. It was rusty, very similar to actually worse than the 800 we just saw. And these panels have been replaced on the front, and looks like he redid the grill for it. Also on the side here, panel replaced. The whole floor, it's a little bit dark in here, but has been replaced. And the roof posts and new roof has been built. In this case it was really rusty. New roof and new panel on the roof. Also on the right hand side of the machine, as you can see, and in here you can see where the tanks have been removed and replaced, and looks like he's working on some mount here for the muffler, repairing that. One of the things that always seemed to be a problem is the skid plate, and in this case there was a new skid plate made for it, and that's another item that's quite often either missing or is so badly damaged from hitting things that they don't fit anymore. Here's another view of the new roof that was basically completely rebuilt or built from new on the 2200. Here's an example of the new bumpers that we have prefabbed. The holes are not drilled because they seem to be different, but the bumpers themselves, we have them made, and we just fit them on pretty much every unit that goes through the shop. You can see here that we have prefabbed, pre-bent anyways, bumpers, so you can cut them to length, and all you have to do is put the end over at an angle, weld a cap like he's done here, and then the bumper's done. A couple of holes, bolted on, done. Here's another 800 where the floor is not too badly rusted, but the tunnel, as I explained on the other one, is, and you can see the rust there, so that can either be repaired, or we have prefabricated tunnel pieces here. You can see that we just get preformed, and we have them, and you could just cut the old one off and put the new one on. Here's an example of the pivot shafts. This thing had very badly worn pivot shafts, and you can see here we've reused the old pivot shaft, but we've taken all the bearings or bushings or whatever, I think this was bearings, and this one, ripped them all out, and we just put in a neoprene style bushing in there. We have different ones for different styles, and put it back together, and she's good to go. We have the box of pre-made bushings that we used. We have different sizes for different applications. These are smaller ones to replace when the OEM used bushings. Those are made to replace when they have two bearings and a seal and a snap ring, like the one I just showed you, and it replaces all of that in one go. In case that the pivot shafts are badly worn, we have new pivot shafts, and we also have new pivot shaft tubes. There they are, welded to the brackets. You wouldn't need those, but there's an example of just tubes. There's more in there. There's some more pivot shafts. So if you have to cut out and re-weld a new tube in, that's only in an extreme, but that is possible as well. And these ones do take the same bushings, just a different one again. And so we have all options covered. For the pivot shafts, inside the frame there's springs. The springs are hardly